Welcome to the In Peace We Rest podcast. Welcome today, you guys. I'm excited for today's conversation. How about y'all?
Me too. I think we're really chatty today and we're really wandery. So I just want to give forewarn, we may wander. This might be a really wandery podcast. I have a feeling. That's the vibe today.
Those are the best ones. I love when the audience just gets to keep up with our lovely train of thoughts. And I think that kind of ties in with what our episode is about today. So today we really want to talk about the guide's perspective. If you've ever received any kind of individual healing sessions, you've attended a class of meditation, obviously you understand what it's like on the receiving end of that. But we wanted to talk a little bit more today to give you guys our perspective. So as we are guiding you in these sessions, in these classes, what are some things that we experience on our end? What makes for a super successful session, in our opinion, and also the ways that we receive when we are guiding. So, who would like to share first? I know we all have lovely stories.
Well, we have to drop in first. So
Thank you. You
let's drop in. Jerry, do you want a guide today or do you want me to?
Yeah, I could. All right. All right, let's settle in. Get our feet on the ground, planted securely to this. Close our eyes, deep breath through the nose, inhaling, visualizing all that light into the heart, then exhaling out the mouth, audibly letting it go. Again, inhaling through the nose, drawing in all that light from source, the sun, the moon, the stars, the cosmos, pulling all that energy deep into our hearts. And as we breathe out our mouth, grounding it down through the legs, down into those beautiful feet, into the earth, connecting, rooting, grounding, centering, alignment. And here we are.
I'm very excited. I'm excited for today. Jerry and I were already vibing, and then Roxy came in and she settled in, and it was easy to. It's so funny how easy it can be to want to skip that step when you feel anchored in, but it's also just super important. And I'm always curious if people can tell the difference between our voices when, but I mean, I know I feel a huge difference in the speed of which I talk and the volume of which I talk, the intensity of which I talk when I'm not dropped in versus when I am. And that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really you're connecting with source, right? You're connecting with that higher power, that higher light, whatever you want to call it. You're connecting to it. And when it does, you get this clarity, not only of mind, but also a voice. And I think it just puts you into that space that you need to be in to be able to teach and be able to present, and to give.
Funny till
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, yeah.
But also, it's also, I was just about to say, I feel like it's also this place of for me, it's always a reminder to listen. It's always a reminder to really slow down and listen and hear what other people are saying because we live our whole life being so projected. We're always wanting to project ourselves. We're wanting to project our opinion. I feel that's a default of a lot of us when we're at work and when we're at other places. We're trying to show and be part of this community. And when we can drop in and we can just be in ourselves, I feel that's the biggest difference for me when I do settle in. Okay, I can just be here.
Yeah, I think I feel very similarly in that, when I am excited, when I do have something to share or some kind of insight, um, it comes from this, excited energy, but it's a push, right? I'm just trying to push the message out versus allow it. And I think, like you said, that's true for all of us. We get so caught up in what's happening in our own brains that we forget to not only listen, but, read the other person's energy. right? I try to be super mindful when I'm having intentional conversations like this of, are you open to receiving this message, and how can I frame it in a way that you can receive it? Not from the space of handling, but like, especially if I am in a session or something like that, I'm very sensitive to what that energy is and how can I deliver this message in a way that you'll receive it for the purpose of your highest good.
Yeah, because you wanna go in and you wanna, like, well, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get to that place of we have as guides, we've seen the journey a lot of times. So you've seen this pattern and we've experienced this pattern, and the pattern is pretty similar with most people. The more you do it, you can see the pattern and you can experience it. And sometimes for me, I feel it is always this reminder. I have to remind myself a bunch, like, don't don't lay out the pattern too much for people. They have to have the experience, so there's always this play of, like, what should I say versus what shouldn't I say? What is for me and what is for them is always a huge question when going into session with someone, when guiding someone, because I feel, and I'm curious what you guys' takes on this is, whenever I go into session, I'm also going into session. Although I am the guide and that's my role in that relationship and that situation, I too am being guided always. And so there's always learning for me. There's always something for me. And it may be different than the person that I am guiding, or it may be very similar. And I always feel like that's really kind of fun. I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I love that anticipation, right? Right before you get to a session, because each session is so unique and so many different things come up in new ways. And as a teacher, as somebody that likes to show people what they experience, it's this beautiful space that you get to learn and observe just by being in your intuitive self, like really being in the moment. It's like that playground that we love as teachers, to be able to be in their energy. And when people come to us, their energy is so strong, right? A lot of times it's in the shadow, and a lot of times it's in that dark space, but it's strong, and so we feel that. And so being able to like blend with that and interact with that, and then help guide it where you can actually show that dark energy, the good energy, bring it to that light side to help them find that balance and what they're looking for. Yeah, there's nothing better than that. That's what gets me excited, right? It's like and when people get that realization of, oh my gosh, I don't have to live in this dark space all the time. I get to like actually feel good. I can let this emotion out, to be able to give people that gift. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about what we do. And it's all because I allow that intuitive space to be present, that sacred space, to allow for that energy to feel comfortable, to feel at ease.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think there's for me, I like to set this up in preparation before my sessions even start. And maybe this is a beautiful space for us to start this conversation is, how do you prepare to go into a session? For me, I am very intentional about cleansing whatever space I am in. I'll use some Palo Santo or some sage, and I will invite in my guides as well as the person I'm about to read, before they even come into the room. I really like to feel their energy a little bit, allow our guides to kind of shake hands and introduce each other. And part of my favorite experience is watching our guides connect, because there's so much in that exchange that I can pick up on that will kind of give me an idea of how the session might go. And I love that you spoke to this idea of them being in the shadow or in the light, because I do recognize differences in myself in how I communicate with them. This person needs a softer approach. This person needs a bigger approach, whatever that might be. Um, and I feel like that always comes in so much stronger when I do intentionally make that connection before the session even starts. And then I'll do it again once that person is sitting in front of me, because it really is important to me in my sessions to empower the people that I'm reading to learn how to do for themselves also.
Mhm.
They may not know.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note, and something like when we speak, it's always interesting to see how different people prepare for sessions and different guides do a lot depending on how they guide as well. And for you, I mean, like Roxy does readings. That's what she does. So her connecting to guides and seeing that guidance before is so important. And as for me, I'm much more of like, okay, when I'm preparing to go into session with someone, usually I'm in the car because my car is my kind of my place, right? Is my space. And so I'm just kind of settling and it's really important for me to be very aware of my body. What is my body feeling? What aches, pains, constrictions do I have in my body? Because I am such a body reader. Like when I go into session with someone, I'm going to touch your body. We're going to manipulate parts of your body. We're going to move in that way. And um, so for me, it's really important that I have a clear connection to what is mine because I am such a feeler and that's how I really experience it. I need to know the difference between mine and them and also know what is the same. So that preparation and connecting to yourself, I think for me is super duper important.
Yeah, it's really important for me to get like to get there early, really. To and it's kind of funny. Like I don't even know if I really have like a routine. I intuitively do so many things the way I work, and so a lot of that is like burning Palo Santo, creating like just feeling the energy. And for me, sometimes the energy doesn't need to be cleared. Sometimes I want to enhance it. I want to bring more in. So I kind of leave my routine open. But the one thing I do give myself is time. I make sure that I'm there like well before my class starts, well before a session, so that I can do whatever I do need to do. Because there are moments when I need to burn sage, or there are moments that I need to like really sit and clear the space, in a deep meditation. Uh, and then understanding what tools I need and what because each session looks so different. And so it's just really giving myself that chance to not feel hurried and so that I can give my best, yeah, my best understanding to them because that's really what we're trying to do is give them this awareness. And if we can't create a space that's warm and welcoming and like and safe for them, like that's the key, right? If you can't create that space, then they're not going to get the treatment that they deserve. And so that's so essential. And I think it's sacred to all of us. Like anybody that's a guide that wants to help people, yeah, make sure the space you're in is proper, right? That it has the ability to do what we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I really agree. I feel the container that you live within is really interesting and how do you walk about being that container? Something I heard a long time ago is I'm not a huge Palo Santo user personally, and I'm also going to be the one who's walking into the studio probably at the same time as you. Just being honest. That's just who I am as a person. But I feel, I listened to something a long time ago that really resonated with me. And anyone else who maybe has a little more ADHD type personality or has a personality where you're moving more. I don't want to ever feel like you should discount that as who you are as well. Because sometimes, this teacher of mine said I can't even remember who it was. Oh, it was Christina Lopes. I was listening to one of her videos and she was speaking about how she would go and she would teach yoga in a studio and they hadn't been doing like dance or something before that. And the teacher's like, "Oh, are you not going to sage? Or are you not going to do all this sort of stuff beforehand?" And she's like, "I am the sage." And that like has always really resonated with me. But I feel you have to own that too. Like you really have to do a lot of work. And that's why I really put in this place of saying when I'm in the car and going to a session, I'm generally not gonna talk to someone in the car. I'm not usually even gonna listen to something. I'll actually speak a good bit of light language to myself and find myself getting into my body. Um, especially it is really different for me when I'm meeting someone for the first time versus meeting someone who I've done session on lots of times. But there is a big difference for me in that as well.
Yeah, huge difference. Yeah, because you gotta, like, cast that net, right? You gotta be able to make sure that you can help them in anything that they're coming to you. But once you have once you figure that out, right, and you can actually move into more specifics of, tools that we know that helped us, we can give that to them.
But I feel too, I wonder if you guys feel there's more comfort in the person who's coming as well. I always tell people their first session that they have with me is like, this is our dance. This is our introduction to each other because you have to feel, especially for me in the body work, like you have to be able to kind of melt. You have to feel safe in my touch and safe in sharing more of you. Like when you go into this energy exchange, and this is something that I like feel so much gratitude for, and like what I want people to know as a guide, like how it feels is it feels so like the honor that I feel when someone has allowed me to be in their energy. That's how I know, like Roxy kind of said before, how do you know if you had a good session or not? I don't ever grade it on, like, how much we got done or how much whatever, like, it for me, that scale is more of how open were we to each other? How open was that connection that we had with each other? Were we all willing to feel and be in the energy together? Uh, because connection and bought and feel is what I really find myself helping people with, learning to feel safe in community. And so when we can have that kind of fire, if you will, together and that like mix of energy that always feels really lovely in a safe way.
Yeah, that energy can be so strong, and I think it's just those, like, what I mean, the work we do, I mean, I think the reality in it is that we're bringing those emotions to the surface, and once those emotions come to the surface, right, what do we do with them? And, like, sometimes those emotions are freaking scary, right? Frickin' that's funny. That's my Utah boy in me. Um, but, anyway, yeah, so it can be scary, and I think it's just so important to have that space for them to allow for them to feel for the first time in probably a very long time. And these emotions can be rooted so deep, like so deep beyond like what I ever understood, like right, like ancestral. Before us in the womb, there's so many places that we get to unlock and share with people. But yeah, creating that safe space for them so that they get to feel all those emotions from wherever they're coming from and then express it, right? Whether that's crying, screaming, laughing, like I think we've all heard it all literally. And I think it's beautiful. And yeah, being able to be on the other side of that, that energy exchange for me, I used to the paranormal work I used to do, like they'd say, "Oh, aren't you drained from doing all this work?" And actually when I'm around people and clients, and I'm helping them, their energy, it's an energy exchange. And it actually is like a fuel for me. It amps me up. It excites me. It gets me going. And so man, what I receive when those emotions come through and I'm able to pull that out and I'm able to see those releases happen and I am able to see that person on the table actually experience that release and that relief and then actually being able to feel that open space that we're trying to create. Oh man, being able to witness that and being able to hold that with like such, I mean, it's just such an honor what we do. And it's just really just helping people find themselves, like who we really are, and feeling, or we're feeling beings, like we're meant to feel. And so much in our lives in this world, we're told to hold it in and suck it up, not feel, and it's just the opposite. And so being able to give people that gift is just such an honor.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you spoke to this. I think whatever guides choose to do, because like you said, we have a million different methods of doing this, right? I think it's not only about clearing the energy to create that safe container, it's about setting the intention. And I love the different rituals that each of us have in dropping in before a session. That's really what we're doing, right? How am I going to connect with my own energy as well as theirs? What's mine, what's ours, and how can I bridge that gap so that we can form a deeper connection to allow whatever needs to come through for you to come through for you. So I love all the different rituals. And again, I love helping clients develop their own rituals too. And so when they do come in, it's not just about inviting in your guides and trying to make that connection, but like, let's set this intention together so that we can do that. And so much of my practice before session and at the beginning of a session is setting that intention together and helping us to both feel safe, to be open, to trust, and to do with this whatever needs to be done. And I would say very early on in my journey of guiding, you want to know the result, right? You want to know if whatever exchange you had made a difference. What did you do with the information that you got in our reading? And that was really hard because as a guide, like that's not really how it works. You don't always know. And they're not always ready to receive or to take action on what they do receive. And so it was a lovely learning process for me to release that and focus on like, okay, what does feel good for me? How can I know if this is successful if I don't know what the end result is? And so Jasmine, I love that you spoke to this idea of um connection, of safety. Like
Yeah.
for me, it's that aha moment of like, I can tell you're being vulnerable and you felt safe enough in this space together, in your connection with me to allow these things to surface when clearly that hasn't been the case for you in other spaces. So now I know I am a trusted source for you in the future. Should you ever need someone to lean on, should you ever need advice on your journey, whether that's with me or for anyone else, that's how I know it was a a successful session. I put that in air quotes because success means something different to everyone. But if you cried, it was a good session.
Oh man, isn't that how we gauge it though? Like, oh hey, did they cry? Did they cry? Because holy shit, man! Sometimes when people cry, they oh, and it's like, and like, there's this little. It's so funny. Like, I think all guides, I think we all do this. All teachers, we do this. Like, we get a little excited when they cry when we know that that little bit of pain is released. We like it. We love it. And
They will also, I feel like it depends on the work that you're doing, right? Because like if you are really getting in touch with emotions and that's the purpose of your work, yes, like emotional release is fantastic. That being said, like I've recently had a session with Jasmine and I didn't cry in that session, but oh my God, I felt more connected to my body than I had in a really long time. And that was like bliss. I was like, yeah, I was gonna speak. I was gonna say I do love a good cry, but lately in my work, I've had a lot of people and Roxy and I are pretty fresh off the heels of doing a session together. Um, oh man, when I can get someone like couch locked a bit, like when I feel like your body can get so like settled and soft and it's just like it's like bliss. I almost can say it's like a bliss out, and I know we kinda joke about, like, it feels pretty orgasmic in an interesting way. It's not so much, like, in your face. It's this kind of just, like your whole body can exhale at the same time, and um, I know, like, when someone leaves so I had Roxy and I had 2 or 3 people this week who have had sessions that they were, like, real, like, just blissed out after, and I was like, "Yes!" Like, because something that has been really coming in for me for the last, like, 2 years probably, 'cause I think you evolve as I would I wanna say so many things at one time. Hang on. 1 sentence. I feel this evolves for you as well because I feel myself years ago, I had a different purpose. Like the sessions and the way I was guiding people and what I was guiding people to was very different than the people who tend to find me now. And I feel a lot of that has to do too with my journey and where I have been on the path and where what I am needing and what I am experiencing for me that is really big because at the beginning I really did love really big emotional releases and recent and I do still love them very very much and I feel like that tends to happen a little more in group work for me nowadays and I do feel like people will release, but I find lately that it's a lot more of the body releasing it for me personally. So I do love, oh man, Roxy's session. It was just like
And it was, I mean, there's like so much gratitude for a session like that. When I get to work with someone who I worked with for a long time, it's as much exciting for them as it is for me because I know we're gonna really find that it's like when I'm working on like Roxy, if I might, if you don't mind, it's okay. When I'm working on the body, it's just like you can feel like you just close your eyes and you can just feel this flow of energy moving. And I'm very careful in my practice. Like I say connection because I want to feel in the presence of your energy. I'm not in your energy. And that's really important for me, especially in the body field work I do, because if I wasn't like that, I would take on all your pain. And that's been a bit of a journey for me to learn how to do that and not take on. But when you're like just in this dance with someone and you can just feel like their fascia release and you can feel that energy flowing, you can feel their muscles release and tighten. And for me, it's just, it's so good. And when you have that person that is so willing to let you and you can just really go. And obviously, Roxy and I are really good friends. So that was really easy for us to kind of go into that flow state together. But it is just the best feeling. And when it's particularly exciting when I can help someone get there for the first time. When you can get into that flow state and feel your body in that way for the first time. Yeah, it gets me stoked.
Oh, one of my favorite things is after any of my sessions or my classes, when I have to actually physically go wake somebody up. That's probably one of my favorite moments. Like, I did my job. Like, I tried to set them up. We tried to, no mistake it. Like, nothing, they're out. Like, and I've had that a few times, and that's been like, man, how awesome was it that I was able to create this space that created so much relaxation that they just drifted off into a whole nother realm. And like, yeah, it's funny because like, most people think, oh, I'm so embarrassed because I slept and it was snoring. And I'm like, when I hear snores, I'm like, man, they are in it. They are deep. They're right where they need to be. And it's so funny because a lot of people would be so embarrassed by that or taken back by that. But I think as a guide, like for me, it's a sign of no, they're into their body. What better if you want to get in touch with yourself? What better place to do it than in your sleep or in your dreams? Like so, I allow it, right? I don't want to wait. I want them to experience that. And so, yeah, that's one of my little guilty pleasures too. So it's not always crying, obviously, right? It's not always crying, but also just the way they react, right? And just that moment after. And there's been times, and I think it's been hard as a guide sometimes, right? Because you'll introduce people to these modalities on how they can help them heal, and I think it's so overwhelming for a lot of people. And then you'll never see them again, and they're like, "Oh man, what did I do?" But I like, did I not do enough? Did I not give them enough? Like, oh, like you can go down that road really quick. And you have to just remember that everybody's journey is their own journey. And when they're ready to come back, they'll come back when they need to. But I had to learn that lesson, right? Like you can't take other people's journeys personal. We're here and they'll come to you when they come. And I've had clients that come over and over again, and I've had clients that I never see again. And that's okay. And I think as a guide, like you have to be okay with that. You have to realize that don't take on so much of what you're trying to put out there that it overwhelms you to a point that you don't want to teach, right? Like don't put yourself in that space. Realize that it's okay to like if people don't come back, that's all right. Because that just allows what? It allows space and room for the people that do need to be there.
Yeah, and I feel like we should never underestimate the power of planting a seed. And I feel so much an honor of if that's all my role is for you, fantastic. Because I can look back on my life and see the moments where seeds were planted in me from people that I am not connected to at all anymore. And I have so much gratitude for that space. You guys have both brought up a couple of things that I'm excited to kind of like go down if I can steer the conversation for a minute, if we will.
Or
Um, First thing, which one do I feel like I want to start with how we each experience intuitive guidance. I believe across all guides for sure there is an intuitive process. How do you personally experience that to know where to lead the session and how to guide the session?
So for me, this has evolved. I feel as you go on the journey as a guide, you're going to some kind of teaching. Like, generally people are learning from someone as they guide, and I've been so fortunate to have really amazing teachers that I've got to do a lot of one-on-one work. That has been my journey. I know that's not always the case for some people, that they get to have that one-on-one work, but it was mine. Um, so that has changed over time, and I feel at the beginning I really relied a lot on tools. I really relied a lot on tools to, I call it double click. Like, I'll have a feeling, and then there'll be a tool that I use that will give me that, like, will also say that same thing. And so I did rely on that quite a lot at the beginning of my journey, and nowadays, not so much, because I feel I'm much more connected to my own body. I'm much more connected to my own body now, and I can feel that in just a different way. And by no means do I feel like I'm so young still on this journey. I'm still young on this experience and in this way of bringing in things. And so I feel it's really fun. I'm really excited to see where that goes for me in the next like 5 years or whatever. Like, I'm excited to see how that evolves even more. But currently for me right now, a lot of that is a lot of my intuition comes through sensation in my body. Um and when you come and you learn from me, and Jerry has learned from me, you've learned from me a little bit, as well as a guide in that aspect for me, I feel like I'm always trying to help you to find your sensation. But for me personally, when I go into session with someone, it is what sensations are happening in my body. Another thing that I use a lot of is light language, which is really I really pushed it off. Like, when that tool, if you will, that way of communication came into my life, I really pushed it away because I thought it was super weird, and I
Can you
stapled.
explain kind of language really quickly for people who may be listening that have no idea what you're talking about?
Yeah, 'cause
Just people probably won't.
most people probably won't. The way that I like to explain it is light language is a it's like it's kind of like toning almost, more so, I would say, than a language, but you take a vibration and you feel it, and then it just kinda creates a bit of sound clusters, and that is like a language. It feels like words, and people will sometimes ask me what language I'm speaking because they think that it's a different language. Um, and there's a lot of different people who do a language. If it's something that you like, even feel like a tinge of excitement for, you can Google some light language meditations. There's lots of different kinds. Um, but for me, the important part in light language is where it's coming from and where I'm feeling that essence is coming from. And a lot of times, because I really am very connected to the elements, which is the biggest part of how I get guidance from the world. And it comes a lot through light language and through different parts of my body. Um, I feel it through like the trees. Like, if the trees were speaking, would want you to experience this sensation, and our voice and the volume and the way that we speak has a lot to do with the sensations that we're feeling, right? If we think about music or if we think about anything, it's all affecting the way that our body is feeling. And so light language for me comes in a lot of times when I have people who um need the softer approach. Light language comes in a lot for me when it's a softer approach. It also comes a lot for me when it's going to be like inner child work. Generally, that's the case. So I don't know if I got it super far from your question, but I hope
I think when you I think when you use light language, I think it's like this intuitive vocal flow, right? But for for somebody, I think that's on the table, and I've had you do it. For me, it reminds me when you do it, it's like almost like a lullaby,
yeah.
right? Of comfort, but it's not anything specific. But because of the way the flow comes through it from you, Jasmine, especially, like it's yeah, it's like a lullaby. So it just kind of makes me kind of just melt into my space and allows me to get there. So yeah, that's awesome.
A lot of, Mary Magdalene energy kinda comes in for me. A lot of very mother type energy is always ever present when light language comes in.
The thing I love about it is someone who, again, has also experienced this with you. I feel like it's a way to bypass the mind. When we are like so deep in meditation, especially early on in our journey, like our minds are going crazy and we're always thinking, am I doing it right? Am I feeling it right? What's like we're evaluating our experience instead of allowing it. And so for me, when you use light language, it's this beautiful softening that I get to experience. I don't get to think about it because I have no idea what you're saying. I just get to feel it and experience it. And it allows me to drop in further.
Yeah, it's definitely a really important tool for me. And going back, trying to tie back to that original question, because we could totally go on a tangent about this. But the original question being, how do I receive guidance? It's that, like, even the tools that I feel drawn to will really show me what kind of session that we're going to have as well. Because I so work in patterns, for me, I can feel like, okay, this is more of a medley tool. We're probably going to be working in grief. This is more fire. We're going to be experiencing some joy. Um, as you develop your toolkit, that really does show you what kind of session that you're going to have. At least it shows me what kind of session I'm going to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's kind of funny. Jenny taught me this muscle testing technique, right? And if anybody of you heard of muscle testing, basically you're just basically listening to your body when you ask yourself a question. I do this, I think, on, I don't know if I'd say a micro or a macro level. I'm still trying to figure out that whole micro macro thing. Like I do it all the time, but I do it in so many moments that that's how I feel now. And so in our household, we always say, hey, if there's something that you want to do, and if it isn't a hell yes, then what are you doing? And so that's kind of what I look for in the sessions, right? Do I need this tool? Do I need this space? What do I need to prepare for? And I'm going and I'm actually just in that time, I'm taking that those moments to clear the energy and ask those questions and let my body react to what the environment needs. And by being able to listen to your body is a magical vessel. Like it knows, it learns, it heals, it hears all the senses, right? And so use your body to allow for that space to feel that peace that you're trying to get to. Um, yeah, and I think it's all about intention, right? And visualization. Um, you know, visualizing a smile on your client's face, like it's okay. Like it's okay to like get to those things. Intuitively just trust your body, intuitively trust the space you're creating. And it's just quieting that mind, right? For me, that's probably one of the biggest keys is quieting all those outside critics in that go on in the mind and actually giving myself a chance to actually just really feel what I am and feel what I think and feel what thoughts that I want to create, what I want to produce. And as long as I stick with that, right? And as long as I pull that energy in, every time I do that, those sessions are going to be exactly what they're meant to be. And that to me is so exciting, right? I had to really learn to trust that because at first it was really scary, like so scary, right? You got to just trust that you don't have an outline, you don't have like a whole script that you have to say and do, and like that can get really scary for a lot of people. But once you can get past that and just really trust your intuition, it becomes this magic. I say playground a lot, but it becomes this magical playground that we get to just use every single thing that we've ever experienced in this world, in our past lives, all of it collectively, all in this moment now. And as long as I've taken everything I can, as long as I've put all my heart into what I'm going to do to help them, then it'll be exactly as the way it needs to be. And so far, I haven't been wrong. So it's pretty awesome, right? It's really our intuition is such a magical part of our being, um, and I think it gets overlooked quite a bit. It should be almost number one on your list because everybody gets those feelings, or I should have just trusted my instincts, right? It's always talked about in regret. I shoulda. Just start owning it. Start trusting your intuition now because it's there for a reason. And the more you can clear your mind from all that outside chatter, the more you're going to be able to find yourself in a space of actually receptive. where you could receive and actually, because once you can receive, then you get that love cup. It gets to get filled up just by being. And then, yeah, that's why we love to teach, right? My love cup is always so full because of all these experiences that we get to create. And yeah, that intuition piece, man, that is so key as far as like knowing where to go, what you want to do. Like, it doesn't have to be figured out, guys. Like, right? Most of the time we figure it out in hindsight. We look at, oh, that's why that happened. So that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be all planned out, you know?
Yeah, I love that you said that. I think, like, for me, for sure, very, very early on in my teaching moments, I was going in with a script to guide a meditation, right? And it was intuitively written out beforehand, but I didn't trust it enough yet to go in front of people. And I love that now that I'm in this flow state, I have no idea what's gonna come up because I can't tell you how many times I pre-wrote out meditations and then it changed by the time I got there. Like, nope, that's not what we're doing next.
Yep.
And I don't know about you guys, but within my own experience, as I do learn to listen and lean into my intuition and without judgment and just go where it leads me, it intensifies, it strengthens. And it doesn't do that without those experiences. So I can confidently say with every single session that I do, with every single class that I do, with every single connection that I make, I recognize my intuitive prompts not only getting stronger, but developing new ones. And that is a wild experience. For me, I feel like I experience the intuitive nudge with literally every single one of my senses.
Yeah.
I can feel it in my body. I can hear things. I can see things. I can smell things that will like stop an entire session. Think the building's on fire or something.
Well, it's a relationship. I feel it's such a relation. Like as Jerry was talking too, I just was like, I'm like, what is the pattern? Like, what is it that we all connections? It's because we've developed these relationships with the environment around us, whether it's the smells, whether it's the feeling in the air, whether it's it, and that's ultimately like, yeah, that's making you a better guide. But that's also what we're trying to teach as well. Like you're your own guide. You are your own connection. And these things are very much available. And I know all of us feel really strongly. We don't do for you. We help to open so that you can do. We want to show you how to have these different big relationships with the things that are around you. And that's how you know. How do you know when someone's upset? It's that same thing. You've developed relationshipal cues that help you understand that.
Yeah. I love to the relationship for me, that relationship has really been with my guides. As I've developed a stronger relationship with my own personal guides and honestly, even the guides in the building, they are like very much present in my sessions and I love it. Um, there have been there have been a handful of sessions when it's with people that I feel really safe with. I will like observe the exchange between our guides. And it's like, all right, she's going to help you, but you're also going to help her. And this is how we're going to do it. And then some like crazy shit will come through. And I'm like, what? Like, is this session more for me or is it more for you? I don't really know right now. But yeah, I love that. And I think in keeping with this theme of what's mine and what's yours, I would love to touch on the importance of boundaries and how do you discern what's yours, what's the other person's, and I think we kind of touched on this before early on in the journey. It's super easy for us to take on everybody else's energy and become drained or overwhelmed or like need to take a side back. So if you guys don't mind sharing your own personal experiences and then your practices that you've developed to help protect you from that.
Yeah, I'll start. It's kind of funny. So protection's really it's a funny thing for me because I started in this world in paranormal world, right? And so whenever we go out on paranormal investigation, it's like, all right, how do we protect ourselves from the demons? What do we do? Right? We don't want them attached to us. We don't want to get possessed. So that's how I came to this world. And it was funny to me because there'd be all these things that people would do. They would sage, they would, they would bless, they would throw holy water, like they would throw everything at it that you see in the movies. And it's just funny that it doesn't really matter. Like you just have to like know the spirit that's there and what they're receptive to. And so it's kind of funny, like, how do I protect myself? I protect myself because I am my own being. I I know when I don't feel right. I know when things are in the space, in the energy, if it feels off, like I'm very aware of that. And so in those moments, I just talk to the spirits that are there. And I just ask them, hey, we're on the same side. We're here in peace. We're all here to heal. We're here to grow. We're here to love. If this isn't your jam, exit left. Like it's like it for me, it's that simple. And just creating that safe space in that regard from a paranormal standpoint. In my sessions, honestly, it's no different. I still the same thing happens, just internal dialogue. I come into the space. I want to make sure everything in that space is beautiful, that the energy is right where it needs to be, that it's comfortable, that all the guides that need to be there are present. My guides, I feel like they're always with me. I have this gang that just kind of follows me around, right? We as we age in life, we collect guides, and I think once we're comfortable with that, we can actually just really tune into that, and um, and so those guys also know who I am, and they also help clear the space. So it's not all you, right? It's not all, it's about what you're trying to create in the environment, and it doesn't have to be all on you. I'm a huge delegator. And so I will delegate to my guides in the back, right? And say, hey, help me out, right? If there's anything I don't see, if there's anything I miss, I know you guys have my back, right? And I feel that through and through to my heart. And I think, and again, it wasn't that way at first. It took me a long time to get into that space to where I trusted that and I like really felt that. But it's just kind of letting go of this muggle world and these muggle ideas, right? And just like putting those down for a minute and just trusting the magic that's really all around us and tuning in with that. And yeah, so that's literally my process. But again, it's kind of even funny to call it a process because it's just how I am. Everywhere I go, every space I enter, everything I do, I that's it's just my package. It's what comes with me. So, and I think if you hold it like that, right, that this practice isn't like something I just practice on Tuesdays and Sundays. This is like an everyday thing. This is my life. This is who I am and how I want to be, perceived in the world. I want to be able to help. And so if I'm not in that space, then I have to question that a little bit and protect myself and like make sure that's able to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a bit of I like mine is a journey. Like I think of it as like this journey of how did I get to this place to have really good boundaries. It becomes less about boundaries and more about trust. And I think you really spoke to that, Jerry. Like, what am I living in a space of trust? And am I trusting in my guides? But I also feel too, and I don't ever want to discount the importance of, everyone is a guide and everyone is supporting people, but it also is really important to get education. It is really important to have mentors and people who are teaching you and helping you, whether those guides are in human form here or whether they are animals, or whether they are the universe and the elements, whatever that is, like, it's important for you to be it was important for me. It was important for me in my journey to be listening to the outside world to teach me this. And I don't have to come up within this all by myself. And as I was going on in the beginning of my journey, I had a lot of experiences where I feel like my guides were giving that to me. They were saying, here's this protection for you. Here's this army, like Jerry spoke of, here's this army of things that are going to be around you. And I have a couple of situations where that was really prevalent. There was this one meditation I had gone into ceremony, and everyone else was just having these like really lovely experiences, and they were laughing and dancing, and I'm over here like huddled on the ground because I can just feel like I am like really in it. Like there is some stuff that is really showing up, and it is so uncomfortable for me, and it is so hard. And I'm like shake my body's a little shaky right now, even just like recalling the sensations. And there were 2 things that really came in strong, and these are really huge parts of my practice now still to this day. I didn't know what they were for a really long time, but I felt these like stones, and I used to describe them. I describe them different now, but I want to take you on a journey. I saw this guy with my did at the beginning. There's these stones that showed up, and they looked like I'm from the Northwest, but they look like totem poles, but they were stone and not quite the same carvings were in them. I've since later realized that they are very much the image and what Toltec shaman stones look like. That's what they look like. And it is just this sphere of energy that is around me, and they are very present. And it is like they are just moving with me always. There's always this circle. And in that same meditation, and this is when you get into the woo part of it that makes you feel like a little bit like a crazy person. Like just saying, like, this is maybe the first time we're really entering that space in this podcast where we do kind of start to talk about some like real weird magic shit. Um, the second thing that really came in for me was the dragons. That was the first moment that I experienced the dragons. And I remember her name is Sophira. That is one of my main dragon, like my main guides in general. And she just tends to take the form of dragon usually. And I just felt her lay on top of me. And it was just this beautiful moment of like, and I feel that's a lot of where my light language comes from, even as I help people, is that feeling of just fierce mom protection. And I don't think that there's much more image of fierce than a mother dragon. Like, right? If you like envision what that would be or what that archetype would be, I don't know that there is much more fierceness in the world than that. So I'm like super duper grateful. And if you know me, you know I have tattoos that represent these things on my body. And of course, she is on my body. So that's always this reminder for me of like, my tattoos are also parts of my protection. They're also parts of like, okay, what is my body? Because like Jerry, this is who I am as a person. I don't know that I feel I almost feel like I have less boundaries in session than I do walking around the grocery store. And I would be curious. I mean, yeah. So that's a really big piece for me is like there has been different places in my journey. Another one was when I really felt the presence of the golden ray. And that is always something I used to start sessions with that a lot. Now I end it with that a bunch. But the golden ray for me is your own channel of energy. It's important for me to set expectation, whether I do it verbally or whether I do it just in intention. You are your energy. I am my energy. And creating that expectation from the beginning that we are not going to melt. When we go into a group together, this is much more obvious for me is like, hey, you're here for you. We're not peeking in other people's energies. We're not going into other people's things. And also for me, the last thing I want to say on that is I also have to be mindful. Just because someone comes to me does not mean that I get to go into them. Just because someone is on my table, they have boundaries. So where am I going? Am I being honorable and safe with their energy? Because you can feel that, oh, that was too far. Let me come back. That's not for me. And when you tend to go too far into something or someone, or you have too much desire for that person, for me, I feel that is when I know that I'm going to take on. When I'm trying too hard. Okay, pull back because that's not for you. And there was a phase of time actually where I didn't touch people a lot because I was having a really hard time with that. And so if it is a journey, and if you are on that journey, whether you are a guide or whether you're just a person, I would hope be okay to pull back. Allow yourself the space to say, hey, right now, I'm not really touching people a lot and I'm guiding more in a different way. And I go through phases now sometimes where I will touch a lot and sometimes I won't. I feel like I've been touching more lately than in the past. But if I feel my body getting, like Jerry said, I know what my body's supposed to feel like. If I feel myself kind of slipping, okay, I'm going to really hold that boundary of touch because your hands are so important.
Yeah, they're magic. And I think sometimes, like, when you, like, for me, I know when, it's kind of funny because I do a little mini Reiki session at the end of one of my classes. And I always do a little bit of Reiki just to connect with them and kind of help ground them and center them. is my intention when I do it. But it's kind of it's amazing when you actually do connect with them, like the magic you feel, like the little energy, the literal connection that happens when you literally connect, and they're as receptive and open to the healing as you are as giving. This bridge of energy happens, and this like your hand, like for me, my hands like light up and my heart lights up and my mind lights up. And it's just like I feel so connected to that individual. And it's almost as if I feel their emotion, not as grand as they do, but I have a better sense of where. And it doesn't happen all the time. I'd say it's probably about 30% of the time that it happens. But man, when that does happen, that's so rewarding. Like it's worth it. Like all the other times that I tried it, it didn't happen. But when those connections happen and you're able to see people, like there's a lot of times like you'll just see tears, just gratitude tears, just streaming down their face. And all I'm doing is just holding space and just letting them know that they're loved and that they're centered and that it's okay to feel balanced. Um, yeah, some of those moments for me are like some of the best moments. But again, it doesn't have to be that either. You don't have to touch. I've had distance sessions where it's the same thing. So don't look into that too much, but also know that there's definitely something there. There's something about being in front of a person and working with them versus the video stuff.
Yeah, I think too, it's always interesting when you work with someone who wants you to go to a place that their soul isn't really ready for you to go to yet. And so I'm sure you guys have had clients like, no, 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 I'm ready. Or like, oh, just tell me. Like, yeah, like I'm hearing things, but you're not ready for that yet. And
I'm ready. I've been on like 12 ayahuasca journeys, so like I'm totally ready.
it's like, and it's so interesting. I think when I have moments like that, because I myself experienced that with a guide that I have worked with for a really long time. And I had so much judgment towards myself and frustration at the other person for not going in when I'm giving them permission. But I feel like with a lot of this work, when we say do the work, when you're going on this healing journey for yourself, there is prerequisite work. Like you can't get to the middle of an onion at the beginning. There are layers to peel back in order for you to really do that deep healing that you want to do. And so we can't rush that healing process. And I really love to give my clients something to go off of. So I'm not just like, oh, no, you're not ready for that yet. It's more of like, there's a lot for you in this reading. First, this is what you're being prompted to do. So do this, sit with that, see how that feels. And when you're ready for more, come back.
I have lots of fun experiences with my I'm not me like my light language is very gentle. Me as a human is not always. And it's and I love that like I feel like I feel like I get away with it because like this like motherly intent, and I'm super lucky that I have just is like Cancer and Libra vibe, but I also had the Sag moon. That's a part of me that just is like so I've had it is hard when you like as a healer, this question of what do I share and when do I share, and this onion piece is always really interesting because um you can have information that you are told to share that is very contradictive to what they feel, what the person might be feeling. And I have been put on that journey lots of times where and it takes a lot of work to get to the place of trusting the universe to say the thing that they don't want to hear. Um, I've been really fortunate that there's been a good handful of times that within a week or two, the people who I had to say some maybe tougher things for them, not like mean things, but just tougher things for them to hear. And I think it really speaks to where they are on the journey. They come back and they say, oh, I see. I see. And I've been really lucky. Not always is that the case, but I've been really lucky to have that experience where so many times now that I really do just trust it. Like if I need to say something, I'm just going to say it because who am I to know how that is going to impact them? I've also had to really surrender to the fact that I don't know why I'm saying that. And it's not my job to figure that out for them. Also, same to Jerry, like it's your journey. and I can't own your healing for you, but I do have to be that honorable conduit, and I have to honor when I have to say something that is maybe a little more complicated or maybe a little more difficult to say, and that is was a because I never want to hurt anyone's feelings, and I never want someone to be upset, but I also have to honor that this is my role as a guide, and this literally the stars gave me these personality traits to be able to say things that maybe other people couldn't say or didn't say to someone, and, that's always really interesting. I used to really hate sessions like that, um, and now I feel like I'm lucky that I don't have so many of those, and it's not such a I think some I used to constrict so much about it because I'm like, "Ah, I don't want to say that." And now it's much more free flowy. So even probably the way that I say it is softer now because I'm not constricting to say it. I don't
Right. Yeah, and you have to trust it, and I think in all those moments, like, I'm reminded of one session that I had, and I just the shock in their eyes. "How dare you tell me this information that I know is gonna change my whole world," right? Like, they're like and just that base of fear of, like, and but the reality is every single time that message that they get, even though it might be hard for them in the moment, always, every single time it comes full circle. Thank you for that message because that gave me a new awareness. And that new awareness is everything that we're trying to show them. And sometimes, like, right, like we have to hear the hard messages. We have to, like, there's been moments in my life where I had to tell, a very close loved one that another loved one has died. Like, those messages that we never wanna have to say, sometimes those are the messages that we need to really trust our intuition and really let it out because we're never meant to understand things, like, always right now. It's always after. It's always later down the road that we understand things, and, yeah, don't be afraid to yeah, getting back to that intuition, right, guys? Like, just trusting that intuition 100% and just know that even if it's a hard message, it's not all, rainbows and lollipops. There's some stuff in there that we like to hold on to that needs to come out, and so, yeah.
Yeah, and I love I'm like the shadow work fanatic over here. So I'm like, yeah, let's go into the hard stuff. However, again, like the part of their ability to receive these really challenging messages is to feel safe. And so I usually like will wait until a little bit further in the reading when they're feeling comfortable, when they're feeling open. And when I have to share a hard truth with them, I like shift everything. I'm like, okay, are you ready for real talk?
Yeah.
I'm going to be bluntly honest with you. I'm just going to tell you how I'm hearing it. And please know that it is coming from a space of so much love, so much support, and so much urgency for you to hear it in this way so that you can do with it whatever you're meant to. I make sure that they're ready. I make sure that they're open, not from this like bracing space, but like, okay, I'm ready. Hit me. Let's go.
Well, you have to be open. Like, you have to be open to sharing that message, and I feel like if we're talking about healer perspective, that is a real challenge that a lot of us experience is how do you do that? And it's so funny because I'm thinking to myself, what are the hard messages that I have definitely had to do it, and I've definitely had moments. What are those messages usually? And quite frankly, they're not usually anything crazy because I think, like, you guys might be thinking, "Oh, hard messages like e X thing," like, it's never you it's never I'm like, "Is it has it ever been that?" No, it's never been that. It's never like, "You have to end this whole thing. You have to flip your whole life upside down." It's never that intensity of things. Usually what people call hard is when you have to say, "Slow down. Slow down. You're not feeling what you think you're feeling." That's a lot of for me because, again, I do body work, right? I do body work in helping you feel the sensations in your body and realizing that the way that your ego has said them to you are maybe not what that sensation really means. And so redefining sensation is a lot of the work I do. So a lot of times I end up needing to say to someone, hey, maybe rethink. that this sensation might be something different, or maybe your body isn't as soft. Like, that's the most offensive thing I feel I've ever had to say to someone is your body is not soft. You're actually not as soft as you could be. And it's so funny because these people, I'm thinking of one particular session and I'm like, that person was really not soft. And I don't even know how they could have thought that that was the case. But, and again, not because of judgment, because they have lived in such, imagine if you felt that was soft. It's like halfway. I would say that they were probably 70% soft. Like 100% is like the most tense you could be. They were probably at 70. And then they thought that was soft. And that's our purpose. That's my purpose as a guide, is like, hey, your body is not, like, it's okay. I'm not judging you. I hope you start to see this as opportunity, not judgment. And that's where I feel like a lot of the tough conversations or tough realizations or tough awarenesses come from, is that space of, hey, openness. This is not judgment. This is opportunity for openness.
Yeah, I feel too, it's so much of challenging the perspective, right? Like you are seeing the world through this lens. I'm going to put on a new pair of glasses for you. And that doesn't feel safe, right? Because they have been in survival mode their whole life with this lens. And you challenging that perspective immediately makes them feel unsafe. And so how can I help you to soften to this new experience? And again, a lot of that is shadow work, right? We're triggering something in themselves that they're not ready to acknowledge yet. And oftentimes that's just a seed planting. And when they're ready to do it, they will. And until then, thank you for the opportunity to reflect back to you the things that I am seeing in you that you may not see in yourself. And that's really what a reading is, right? Any of our sessions is just helping you to tap into those deeper parts of yourself that you're still learning to communicate with and acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, I kind of want to go back to this idea of energy exchange for just a minute. I feel like empath is such a bad word right now, right? Like everyone's an empath. And I believe that that's true. We are all very empathic. And for me, very early on in my journey, I picked up on everybody's energy all the time. And it was so overwhelming. And I was super open in the beginning, and then I was super closed off to compensate. And I feel like this lifetime is just allowing that to ebb and flow and finding my space in the middle. And I think, a tool that someone gave me, I can't even remember who now, but I literally have this little energy bubble, and to be able to adjust the flow of energy that can exist between the two of us. How much am I letting in? How much am I exerting out? Really helps for me to monitor that boundary for myself. And as I do invite guides in and I do these readings, I'm very specific about the time in which they are allowed to be in my energy. Because so much of my reading is actually channeling. Like I am inviting them in to my essence. And that was really scary for me at first. And now, again, kind of like what Jerry was speaking to, it's not just me that's in charge of it. It's all my guides. And I did do an ayahuasca journey, and I had a lovely hippie woo-woo experience where I saw and I felt all of those guides, and I feel this deep connection to them all the time. And so that was really something that helped me to build that trust, that I don't have to have these walls up 124/7, but I should be mindful. And it is a daily, sometimes an hourly practice that I need to do depending on the environment that I'm going into. Like you said earlier, Jasmine, going into the grocery store looks very different than when I'm doing a session. So I would agree with you. I think I'm definitely more open